Christmas music played softly when I walked into my son's house. Warm lights, polished cutlery, guests in red and gold. Everything looked expensive, curated, and meant for people who fit into that world. I wasn't one of them, and they made sure I understood that fast. The coordinator pointed toward the back. "You're over there, ma'am, near the service area." My daughter-in-law, Lydia, leaned in close enough for me to feel her perfume. "Your poverty will embarrass us tonight. Please don't create a scene." Her tone was sweet, but her eyes weren't. My son Ethan stood behind her, adjusting his tie like he didn't hear a word. He heard. He always heard. Silence was just easier for him. I kept my face still and nodded once. No argument. No plea. They wanted me small. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. The chair they assigned me shook every time the kitchen door swung open. Servers shuffled in and out with trays of glazed ham, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce. Their elbows brushed past my shoulder like I was part of the furniture. A stack of folded napkins sat on my seat. Someone had tossed them there, assuming no real guest would sit. I moved them aside and sat anyway. The room buzzed, laughter, glasses clinking, people greeting each other with warm hugs. None of that warmth reached where I sat. From my corner, I could see the long family table where Lydia's parents sat. Pearls, cufflinks, wine that cost more than my monthly pension. Lydia glowed under the lights, like someone auditioning for perfection. Ethan stood beside her, smiling the way he used to when he was a child. Except now, the smile wasn't mine to receive. A waiter nearly bumped my arm. "Careful here, ma'am. Busy spot." "I know," I answered quietly. My voice didn't shake. From across the room, a woman whispered to her friend, "Is that Ethan's mother? Why is she sitting there?" Her friend shrugged. "Maybe she's used to it." I breathed slowly through my nose. No reaction. Humiliation only works when the target plays along. Tonight, I wouldn't. I straightened my back, lifted my chin, rested my hands on my lap to keep them from trembling. For a moment, I watched Ethan. He checked his watch, fixed his collar, then kissed Lydia's cheek. She leaned into him, perfect and composed. The boy who used to bring me hand-picked daisies, the boy who once cried because I missed his school play, he was gone. In his place stood a man who'd learned to climb fast and forget even faster. A server placed a glass of water in front of me. I picked it up. My hand trembled once, then steadied. I had survived worse. Just as I took a breath, the chair beside me slid back. A man in a black suit sat down, tall, composed, with silver hair that caught the warm light. He wore polished leather shoes and a watch I recognized, even from the corner of my eye, something few people could afford. He looked at me, calm and sure. "Let's pretend we came together." I froze. He rested a hand lightly over mine. The weight wasn't heavy, but it was steady enough to stop my breath. Conversations around us slowed. Guests glanced over, eyes widening, trying to understand why a man who clearly belonged near the head table had chosen to sit here, next to the woman they'd dismissed. Whispers started. "Who is he? Why is he sitting with her? He looks important." The shift in the air was immediate. Curiosity, then confusion, then quiet caution. I didn't move. I turned my head slightly, just enough to study the lines on his face. Sharp, refined, familiar in a way that hit deeper than I expected. He leaned in. "Chin up. Your son is about to look over." I lifted my head, slow and controlled. Across the room, Ethan glanced toward the service area. His eyes landed on us. His smile disappeared, color drained from his face. He stared like someone seeing a ghost sit beside his mother. I didn't look away. Lydia followed his line of sight. Her grip on her wineglass tightened. Her jaw stiffened. The man beside me kept his voice low. "Good. Let them wonder." I swallowed once, steady. "I don't understand." "You will," he answered. "Just breathe." The whispers grew. "Is he family?" "He's dressed like someone serious." He came with her? Their eyes, so quick to judge me earlier, shifted again. Pity turned to curiosity, curiosity to speculation. Respect hadn't arrived yet, but something had cracked. For the first time that night, I didn't feel invisible. I let a quiet breath slip out and lifted my chin another inch. Humiliation had turned into confusion, and confusion was the first sign that the balance was about to change. Tonight, they wanted me in the shadows, but the man beside me had placed me back in the light, and the night had only just begun. I kept my gaze straight as the room shifted around us. Christmas lights flickered across the walls, throwing soft shadows over the tablecloths and polished silverware. But everything in that room felt sharper now, like someone had drawn a line straight through the night. The man beside me rested his elbow lightly on the armrest, calm, unmoved, a presence that didn't belong near a service door. Ethan tried to focus on the guest giving a toast, but his eyes kept darting back. Lydia tugged his sleeve once, whispering something, but he didn't respond. His gaze stayed locked on the image he couldn't make sense of. His mother sitting beside a man who looked like he owned half the room. I breathed slowly, keeping my posture steady. "You're holding up well," the man murmured. I turned slightly. "Why are you sitting here?" His lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Because they didn't expect anyone would." I didn't answer. The kitchen door swung open again, servers rushing past with trays of roasted turkey and Christmas stuffing. Their pace slowed when they saw him. One even paused, unsure whether to cut between us or walk around. He lifted a hand in a small gesture. "Go ahead." The server nodded quickly and slipped past, careful not to bump my chair. Another shift in the room. People were adjusting to him, then adjusting to me because of him. It wasn't lost on anyone. Across the table, Lydia whispered to her mother. The woman, a stern-looking figure in emerald velvet, glanced my way with an expression that hovered between suspicion and irritation. Her voice carried farther than she intended. "Who invited him?" Lydia shook her head. "He came with her." The older woman blinked. "Impossible." I kept my eyes forward. The man leaned closer. "They're already rewriting the story in their heads." "I didn't ask for this." "You didn't have to." A beat passed. His tone remained low, controlled. "When someone tries to shrink you, sometimes all you need is a witness to remind them you're not small." I held my breath for half a second, not because of his words, but because something about them felt too precise, too familiar. Before I could respond, a guest approached, one of Lydia's friends. A young man with a designer sweater and a glass of wine he hadn't stopped admiring. "Excuse me," he said, eyes fixed on the man beside me. "We're doing introductions for the head table. Would you like to join us?" The man gave him a polite but firm smile. "No, thank you. I'm right where I need to be." The young man hesitated. "If you're sure." "I'm sure." He backed away, confusion etched across his face. Ethan stood abruptly. His chair scraped the floor. Lydia grabbed his wrist. "Sit down." "I need to—" "No." Her voice sharpened. "Not now." He sank back into his seat, but his eyes never left us. The man beside me glanced at my untouched water glass. "Drink. You're running on nerves." He wasn't wrong. I took a small sip. He waited a moment before speaking again. "Do you want to know my name?" I swallowed. "Yes." He rested his wrist on the table, calm, casual, practiced. "Nicholas." My heart jolted, not outwardly, not visibly. But inside me something moved, something I thought had died decades ago. I kept my voice even. "Nicholas who?" He let the silence stretch before answering. "Hale." I blinked once. My fingers tightened around the glass. "You?" "Later," he murmured. "Not here." I looked at him fully now, taking in the silver hair, the strong jaw, the faint lines near his eyes. Time had changed him, but not enough to erase the outline of the young man I once knew. He added quietly, "Let me handle the room. You handle your breathing." It almost made me laugh. Almost. Before I could gather myself, the Christmas dinner began. Plates were passed around, toasts were made, every speech felt longer than the last. But the real spectacle wasn't the food or the lights. It was the way people kept glancing toward us. The woman pushed near the service area, and the man who sat beside her like he belonged at the center of the head table. A couple approached. "Mr. Hale, is it?" the man asked. Nicholas nodded. "We thought the hosts might want you up front." "I prefer to sit with Nora." My name in his voice felt strange, familiar but distant, like a memory returning with its own footsteps. The couple left quickly, whispering to each other. Across the room, I watched Ethan crumble slowly. He ran a hand over his face, jaw tight, eyes flicking between Nicholas and me. Lydia looked furious, not yelling furious, worse, panicked. Nicholas tapped his thumb against the table. "Your son looks uncomfortable." "He should be," I answered, voice steady. "Good," he murmured. "Truth has a way of cornering people." A server approached with red wine. "For you, sir?" Nicholas shook his head. "For her." The server poured carefully. My glass filled halfway, never too much, never sloppy. Nicholas waited for the server to leave. "You're doing well." "I'm only sitting." "Yes, but you're sitting like someone who finally remembers her place." I turned to him. "And where is that?" "In plain sight," he said without pause. "Where you should have been all along." The next moment, the kitchen doors opened again, and a group of guests walked out, laughing together. Their laughter faltered when they saw us. One of them nudged another. "Is that the woman Lydia pushed to the back?" "Then who's the man with her?" "He looks important." Nicholas leaned slightly toward me. "Let them look." I breathed out slow. For the first time that night, their shame felt heavier than mine. Nicholas rested his hand near mine, not touching, just close enough to steady the air between us. "From here on," he said, voice low, "you won't sit in the shadows again." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The dinner noise faded behind us the moment we stepped outside. Cold air brushed my face, clean and sharp after hours of watching people pretend to be gracious. Christmas lights blinked along the porch railings. I tightened my coat and walked toward the side path. Nicholas stayed beside me, matching my pace without asking where I was going. We stopped near the small terrace where the servers took their breaks. It was quiet, just the click of plates being stacked on the other side of the wall. I rested my hands on the railing. Nicholas stood a step behind me, his breath steady in the cold. "You still count seconds before you speak," he said, voice low. I turned slightly. "I speak when words can fix something." He nodded once, like he'd heard that line from me before. "You always were precise." I didn't answer. My eyes stayed on the yard lit with strings of white bulbs swaying in the wind. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he shifted, leaning against the railing beside me. "They didn't treat you well in there?" "I'm used to it," I replied. "That's the part that bothers me." I looked at him. His face was calm, but the tension in his jaw told a longer story. "You're not here to be bothered for me," I said. "No," he answered. "I'm here because I should have been part of your story a long time ago." That stopped me. He watched me carefully, almost afraid I'd look away. "I wrote to you, Nora." My fingers tightened around the railing. "I never received anything." His brow pulled together. "Not one letter?" "Not one." He blinked, stunned. "I sent dozens, some from Boston, some from D.C. I even left messages on your home line." "My mother screened my calls," I replied, steady. "She chose what she wanted me to hear." Nicholas breathed out slowly, like a puzzle he hadn't been able to solve for 40 years had finally clicked. "She didn't want me around." "She wanted safety," I said. "Stability. A husband who didn't come with surprises." "And she thought I did." "She thought you had too much ambition," I said simply. He looked down. "I had ambition because I wanted to build something. For us." "She didn't know that." He straightened, eyes sharp. "But you did." I met his gaze. "And I was young." He nodded again, slower this time. I came back after my first big contract. I tried to call. The number was disconnected. Your house was sold. No one knew where you'd gone. My husband and I moved right after the wedding. You married fast. Life looked clearer when I stopped hoping for something I couldn't explain. Nicholas's jaw tensed again. You thought I forgot you. I thought you chose a different life, I said. One that didn't include me. He went quiet. The winter wind pushed a few pine branches together, clicking softly. He watched them a moment before speaking again. I waited, he said. I kept thinking something would reach me. A letter, a neighbor, a wrong number, anything. I didn't move. I even kept a photo of you, he added. The one where you were holding that book and laughing at something off camera. I let out a slow breath. You kept that? For decades. Another beat of silence settled between us. Warm where the truth landed, cold everywhere else. He finally turned toward me. Do you ever think about it? About us? I didn't smile. Not in a way that changed my life. He didn't look offended. He almost looked relieved. Then maybe this is the right time. For what? I asked. For honesty, he said. For finishing the things we weren't allowed to finish. I studied him a long moment. His coat collar lifted slightly in the wind. His silver hair caught the light from the dining room windows. His eyes stayed on mine, steady, patient. You think one evening fixes 40 years? I asked. No, he said, but it explains why we lost them. I held the railing tighter. What happened tonight doesn't change the past. No, he agreed, but it does show who's standing with you now. I looked away toward the lake behind the house. Snowflakes drifted across the water. The cold stung the tips of my fingers. You think my son saw all that? I asked. He saw enough. And Lydia? People like her always see power first, he replied. She couldn't understand why I sat beside you, but she understood what it meant. I didn't argue. He wasn't wrong. Nicholas moved closer, but not enough to crowd me. If I had found you earlier, would you have wanted to speak to me? Maybe, I said. Maybe not. He smiled faintly, still cautious. I learned it the hard way. He nodded. Fair. We stood there a while longer. The faint sound of Christmas music leaked from the dining hall behind us. A door opened, laughter spilled out, then faded again. My fingers warmed slightly as he gently placed his hand over mine on the railing. You know, he said, we can't rewrite time. I know. But we can choose what's left, though. I didn't respond right away. My breath came out white in the cold air. I'm not ready for choices, I said at last. That's fine, he replied. I'm not asking for a decision, just a conversation. I turned toward him fully this time. Then why come tonight? Because someone should have been at your side, he answered. Someone who didn't look away. I held his gaze a long, steady moment. Then I whispered, Thank you. No need, he said softly. Just don't disappear again. I won't. He stepped back, offering his arm, not demanding, just waiting. I took it. And for the first time that night, the cold didn't feel cold at all. We reached the back gate of the Monroe estate without speaking. Snow covered the stone path, thin enough to crunch under our steps. The night was cold, sharper than it had been earlier, but the air felt cleaner once we were away from the noise and the eyes inside. Lake Charles stretched ahead, dark water moving quietly under rows of Christmas lights reflecting from the houses along the shore. Nicholas slowed beside me. Do you want to walk a little? He asked. I don't mind. We started down the lake path. The wind came off the water in short bursts, lifting the ends of my scarf. Nicholas adjusted his pace to mine, silent for a moment, giving room for thoughts neither of us had sorted yet. You haven't changed much, he said at last. I've changed in every way that matters. He nodded. But not in the way you carry yourself. And how is that? Carefully, but never small. I kept walking. Life makes you cautious. Maybe, but some people let caution shrink them. You didn't. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The lake lights flickered across the water as we walked, steady and cold. Earlier, Nicholas went on, when your daughter-in-law whispered those words to you, I heard them clearly. So did I. I expected nothing less from her. He glanced at me. You didn't look shaken. I don't give people like her the reaction they want. Nicholas breathed out a short sound that might have been approval. You handled it with more control than most executives I've seen. Control is the only currency left when people decide you're beneath them, I said, and you used it well. We walked another few yards. The snow deepened near the curve of the path. A few couples passed us, bundled in coats, laughing lightly, as if untouched by the weight of the day. Your son saw everything, Nicholas said. I know. He didn't look proud. He hasn't been proud of me in years, I said. Not since he married into his wife's world. Nicholas studied my face. That must have hurt. It did. Then it stopped. Pain gets old. He didn't argue. He didn't try to comfort me either. That was one thing I remembered about him. He always respected silence when it mattered. We reached a bench by the water. Snow dusted the surface, undisturbed. Nicholas brushed it off with his glove and gestured. Sit a moment. I sat. He stayed standing for a beat, watching the lake, hands in his pockets, shoulders straight, like he was gathering the right words. Then he sat beside me, not too close, not too far. What's your plan now, Nora? He asked. For tonight? For everything. I looked out over the water. I haven't decided. You always decide. I used to, I said quietly, before the last years made me slower to trust. He didn't push. You have every right to be cautious. I'm not cautious, I said. I'm awake. He gave a small smile. Fair enough. We were quiet again. The wind shifted, bringing the faint smell of pine from the estate. Somewhere in the distance, a single car passed, its tires crunching through the snow. Nicholas clasped his hands together. I haven't asked you this yet, but are you happy? The question was simple, but it landed heavier than anything else that night. I'm not sure happiness is the right word, I said, but I'm not lost. That's something. It's enough. He leaned back slightly. I never married. You mentioned that. Do you want to know why? I can guess. Maybe, he said. But I'll tell you anyway. Every time something in my life changed, every time I moved, built something new, or entered a new space, I kept thinking how different it would have been if you were there. That thought didn't go away. I turned my head toward him. He met my eyes without flinching. You're not trying to rewrite anything? I asked. No, he said plainly. I'm trying to start the part that never got written. I looked back at the water. You sound sure. I am. I'm not. I know, he said calmly. That's why I'm not asking for anything tonight. What are you asking for? A chance to walk beside you, he said, without the missing years hanging over us. I breathed slowly. The cold air tightened my chest, but not in a painful way. You said we can't rewrite time, I said. We can't. He paused. But we can edit the ending. I turned to him again. Why now? Because I saw you tonight, he said simply. Really saw you, the way you held your ground, the way you stayed calm when they tried to make you small. That's the woman I knew before everything changed, and she's still here. I didn't answer right away. A few snowflakes drifted down, landing lightly on the bench. Nicholas stood first. Walk with me again. I rose. He offered his hand, not as a demand, just an invitation. I didn't take it, but I walked beside him. We moved along the lake path in silence, steps matching easily, as if the years between us had never stretched as far as they did. At the end of the trail, where the path divided toward the parking lot and the main road, Nicholas stopped. One more thing, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Not tonight, not tomorrow. I met his eyes. And you expect what from me? Nothing, he said. Just clarity, when you're ready. I held his gaze a moment longer, then I nodded once. He didn't smile. He just accepted the answer like a man who understood the difference between patience and pressure. We walked back toward the lights of the estate. This time, I didn't feel alone. Nicholas dropped me off at my house just before noon the next day. Snow still covered the walkway, thin but bright under the winter sun. I had barely hung my coat when a sharp knock hit the door. Not one knock, 3. Fast, impatient. I opened it. Ethan stood on the porch. Lydia beside him, chin high, coat untouched by snow, as if the weather ordered itself around her. She didn't wait. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped aside. "Then come in." They entered like they owned the place. Lydia walked ahead, eyes scanning the living room with that same look she always used when she thought something wasn't expensive enough. Ethan stayed near the door, shifting on his feet. I didn't offer them tea. I didn't sit. Neither did they. Lydia folded her arms. "Last night was unnecessary." I looked at her. "Which part?" "You know which part," she shot back. "You made a scene." "I was seated by the service area," I said. "Your own choice." "That's not the point." "It is to me." Her jaw tightened. "You're twisting things." "No," I said calmly. "I'm correcting them." Ethan finally stepped forward. "Mom," I held up a hand. "Let her finish. She came here to speak, not you." Lydia inhaled sharply, offended but not surprised. "Fine. Then here it is. Stop using my husband's guilt to manipulate him." I let her words hang in the air, cold, sharp, dishonest. "Is that what you think happened?" I asked. "That's exactly what happened," she said. "You embarrassed us, and now you're trying to play the victim." Nicholas's words echoed in my mind. Stand, don't bend. I stayed still. "Lydia," I said evenly, "you whispered in my ear that my poverty would embarrass you." She blinked. "You misheard." "No," I answered. "I heard you very clearly." Ethan looked down. His silence was confirmation. Lydia hesitated for half a second. Then she pushed forward anyway. "You invited that man to shame us." "I didn't invite anyone," I said. "He sat beside me because he has manners." Lydia scoffed. "Manners? He humiliated Gerald. Do you know what he said to him?" "Yes," a voice answered behind them. They turned. Nicholas stepped inside through the still open door. He had knocked lightly, but Lydia had been too busy arguing to notice. He closed the door with a quiet click and walked in with the slow, confident pace of a man who had nothing to prove. "Hello again," he said, his tone polite, his eyes not. Lydia stiffened. "Why are you here?" "I was checking on Nora," he said simply. "Something you should have done last night." Ethan swallowed. Lydia squared her shoulders. "You don't belong in this conversation." Nicholas didn't blink. "Your father leases one of my buildings." The room froze for a full second. Lydia's mouth opened, then closed. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything," Nicholas said lightly. "Because you and your parents seem to think status gives you permission to treat people poorly. I'm here to correct that assumption." The temperature in the room shifted, not from anger, from power. Ethan's head snapped toward Nicholas. "You own the building?" Nicholas nodded. "For 12 years. Lydia's face paled. "You're lying." "No," he said. "But you do that often enough for both of us." I watched her expression fall. That split second of panic. The same look she had when Nicholas sat beside me at the dinner. She tried to recover. "This is ridiculous. You're threatening us." "I'm stating facts," Nicholas replied. "If I wanted to threaten, you wouldn't need to ask." Her breath hitched. I stepped in then, voice steady. "Enough." Everyone turned to me. "This isn't about property," I said, "or buildings, or last night. This is about respect." Lydia scoffed. "Respect is earned." "Exactly," I said. And you haven't earned any from me." Ethan flinched. Lydia's voice cracked. "You're twisting everything." "No," I said. "You insulted me. You hid it behind whispers. You placed me in the back of the room and expected me to accept it." I stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "But something happened that you didn't predict. Someone saw it. Someone refused to let you hide me." Nicholas crossed his arms. "And suddenly," I continued, "you realized you weren't in control." Lydia's cheeks reddened. "You can't treat people like furniture, Lydia," I said. "Not me. Not your husband. Not anyone," Ethan spoke softly. "Mom, please." I looked at him. "You were quiet when you should have spoken." He lowered his head. Lydia shook her head. "This is absurd. You're trying to turn Ethan against me." "No," I said. "You did that when you put words in his mouth and stripped him of a spine." Ethan winced. Nicholas stepped beside me, not touching, just present. Lydia looked between us, panic creeping into her voice. "You think you can bully us? In our own family?" I answered plainly, "No, I think I can tell you the truth." She swallowed hard. "Which is?" "Respect is not seasonal." Silence, sharp and heavy. Then I stepped back and pointed at the door. "This conversation is over. You came to instruct. You didn't come to listen." Lydia's eyes filled with rage. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "You will." Nicholas opened the door for them. Ethan walked out first, shoulders slumped. Lydia followed, trembling with fury she couldn't cover. When the door closed, Nicholas turned to me. "You handled that well." "I handled it correctly," I said. "There's a difference." He nodded. "A big one." I breathed in once, steady and full. Christmas had brought many things, but today it brought clarity, and clarity was enough. 3 days passed before Lydia reached out again. A text arrived at noon. "Dinner tonight, just us, to fix things." Fix things. People like her loved those words. They made cruelty sound like a scheduling error. I didn't reply. I simply dressed, tied my hair back, and arrived on time. Nicholas offered to drive, but I told him this part needed to happen without him. He didn't argue. He only said, "Stay centered," and handed me my coat. Lydia chose a restaurant with marble floors, gold trim, and servers who looked trained to ignore human emotion. Ethan waited at the front table, stiff in his seat, hands clasped too hard. Lydia stood when she saw me. Her smile was brittle. "Nora, thank you for coming." I nodded. "Let's sit." We did. A waiter approached. "Sparkling water for the table?" "No," Lydia said quickly. "Still water. It's simpler." I watched her. Control was her comfort food. The waiter left. Silence filled the table, thin and cold. Lydia folded her napkin slowly, like she needed the motion to steady herself. "So," she began, "we want to start fresh." I lifted my eyes. "Start by meaning it." Ethan exhaled through his nose. Lydia shot him a warning glance before turning back to me. "Last week was stressful," she said. "People said things they didn't mean." "You said exactly what you meant," I replied. Her jaw twitched. "Nora, please, I'm trying." "That's the problem," I said. "You always try to control the narrative, not the behavior." Her mouth tightened, but she kept the polite tone. "Can we not do this here?" "We can only do this where truth fits," I said. Ethan looked between us. His lips parted like he wanted to step in, but he didn't. Lydia clasped her hands. "Fine. Then I'll be honest. Your friend, Nicholas." "Yes, him. He escalated everything. He humiliated my parents." "They humiliated themselves," I answered. Her eyes flashed. "You're defending him again?" "I'm defending the facts," I said. "Your parents spoke down to me before they even heard my name." Ethan leaned forward. "Mom, they didn't—" "They did?" I said. "And you watched." He looked away. Lydia inhaled sharply. "We invited you tonight because we want peace." "No," I said evenly. "You invited me to reset the power you lost." Her face froze. The waiter returned, placing 3 glasses on the table. He poured the water quietly, his eyes trained on the rim, sensing the tension, but pretending not to. Lydia waited until he left. "You're twisting everything again," she whispered harshly. "No," I said. "I'm stating the part you keep avoiding." She frowned. "Which is?" "You want peace on your terms. Silence from me, compliance from Ethan, appearances for your parents." Ethan sank deeper into his seat. Lydia's voice lowered. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "Honesty has a price," I said. "You never liked paying it." Her breath hitched. "What do you want then?" "Respect," I said simply. "Real, consistent, and not delivered through clenched teeth." She blinked. "And what does that mean?" she asked. "It means stop pretending this dinner is an offering." Lydia stiffened. "I invited you out of goodwill." "You invited me to save face," I corrected. Her lips trembled. She steadied them. "You're being cruel." "I'm being accurate," I said. "Cruelty was when you placed me near the service area." Ethan flinched. Lydia swallowed hard. "I apologized." "You made noises that sounded like apology," I said. "That's different." Ethan ran a hand over his forehead. "Mom, can we not—" "We can," I said, "but not without truth." Lydia leaned in, lowering her voice into a tight whisper. "I'm trying to be civil." "Then be real," I replied. She froze again. The veneer slipped. I watched her silently. She broke first. "Fine," she said. "You embarrassed us. You embarrassed me. I didn't like how it made me look. There. Better," I said. Ethan stared at his wife. Shock, hurt, and resignation crossed his face. Lydia kept going, voice cracking slightly now. "And yes, I was wrong, but you brought a man who made everything worse." I shook my head. "No, he didn't make it worse. He made it visible." Her breath stopped in her throat. I sat back, keeping my gaze steady. "Visibility is uncomfortable when you rely on shadows." Ethan exhaled shakily. Lydia pressed her palms together on the table, voice trembling. "What do you want from us?" "Consistency," I said. "Not cycles, not insults followed by invitations, not whispers followed by dinners." She stared. "And if we give it?" "Then we move forward," I said. "And if we don't?" I rose, calm, quiet, certain. "Then this dinner ends exactly where it started." Nicholas's words echoed in my mind. "Stand, don't bend." I picked up my coat. "Nora!" Ethan stood quickly. Lydia reached out. "Wait." I stopped just long enough to look at both of them. "Family isn't a contract," I said. "Stop treating it like one." I turned. The waiter stepped aside as I passed, almost bowing from instinct. The cold air met me outside, cleaner than anything inside that gold-trimmed room. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps, no apology chasing me out the door. Only silence. A silence that finally felt like truth. Snow started falling again that morning, thin flakes drifting sideways across my porch, tapping lightly against the window. I was setting a kettle on the stove when a dark sedan pulled into my driveway. Not Lydia's car, not Ethan's. This one was newer, shinier, paid for by someone who enjoyed buying silence. A woman stepped out in a fur coat that looked too heavy for the weather. Martha Monroe, Lydia's mother. A face carved from cold marble and warmed only by money. She knocked once, hard. I opened the door just enough. "Martha." "Nora." She straightened her coat. "We need a conversation." The last time she spoke to me at Christmas dinner, she pretended not to hear my name. Now she spoke it like an order. I moved aside. Briefly. She entered without thanking me. Her eyes swept the room the way people inspect a hotel before deciding if it's worth posting online. No greeting, no courtesy. She went straight to her purse. "Let's get to the point," she began. "Last week caused unnecessary attention." I kept my hands folded. "Attention follows behavior." Her jaw flexed. My daughter was distraught. She created the distress. Martha blinked, annoyed that the statement didn't land the way she expected. She placed a white envelope on my coffee table, thick, crisp, heavy enough to make its message obvious. 50,000, she announced, quietly. Silence settled around us like a closed door. Accept it, she continued, and we all move on. No more public scenes, no more uncomfortable dinners, no more complications. She pushed the envelope closer with 2 fingers. I didn't touch it. I didn't reach for it. I didn't even look down. She wants peace, Martha added. We all do. Peace, I repeated softly. Or compliance? Martha stiffened. Don't play semantic games. This is generous. I'm sure it feels that way from your side. Her voice sharpened. From any rational side. I stepped around the table, letting the kettle hiss faintly in the background. The envelope sat between us, like a test neither of us pretended to hide. Martha folded her arms. You complicate simple things. And you decorate offensive things, I replied. Different habits. A flush rose under her makeup. 50,000 solves a lot of problems. For who? For everyone. I let the words hang there. Then I tapped the envelope once, lightly. You think this buys silence? It buys resolution, Martha countered. No. My tone stayed flat. It buys pretense. Her lips pressed together. You're exaggerating. Your daughter placed me near the service area and whispered insults. Your family acted like distance was dignity. Your son-in-law watched in silence. That's not exaggeration. That's record. Martha's nostrils flared. You humiliated Lydia and Gerald. They did that themselves. A long breath escaped her, slow and tremoring faintly. She reached for the envelope again, sliding it closer to my side of the table. Take it, she insisted. This keeps everything civil. I looked at her fully now, straight, unblinking. My worth isn't for sale. She froze. And if it were, I added, you couldn't afford it. Her eyes widened, offended first, then shocked, then something closer to unmasked panic. How dare you speak? I lifted a finger, not to silence her, to stop the unraveling of excuses I knew were coming. You came into my home, I reminded her, with an envelope you thought would reset a hierarchy that no longer exists. It was goodwill. No, I cut in. It was control. Her breath hitched. I reached for the envelope then, not to keep it, but to hold it for 1 second, just long enough for her to believe I might consider it. Then I tore it in half. Clean. Straight. Without hesitation. Her mouth fell open. Are you insane? 2 more tears. 4. Then the halves became quarters falling lightly onto the coffee table. Money fixes leaks, I said. Not morals. She stared at the pieces, body rigid, pride collapsing faster than the paper between us. You'll regret this, she whispered. No, I replied. Regret belongs to the people who think dignity has a price tag. Her breath grew short, shaky, the kind of sound someone makes when their entire worldview bends for the first time in decades. She grabbed her purse with jerky hands. Lydia will never forgive you. That's her work to do, I answered. Not mine. Martha turned toward the door, but hesitation pulled her back. You think you're above us, she snapped. No, I said. I think I'm outside your games. She didn't have a comeback for that. Just silence. When she stepped onto the porch, the winter light hit her face, showing her age in a way money couldn't hide. Snow dusted her coat. She brushed it off like it offended her. She walked back to her sedan without looking back. I closed the door gently. No slam, no victory pose, just a quiet click. Snow light spilled across the floor. The torn envelope pieces sat still on the coffee table, soft and white like wilted petals, but not symbolic, just paper, exactly what they were. I exhaled. People like Lydia and Martha believed humiliation was a weapon. They were wrong. Humiliation was a mirror, and today they finally saw their reflection. The next morning, rain tapped lightly on my window, steady and calm, like a reminder that the world was moving, whether the Devons liked it or not. Nicholas texted early. "Julia is ready. Come by the office at 10. I finished my tea, tied my hair back, and walked out of the house with a steadiness I hadn't felt in years. Whitmore Capital's building towered above Michigan Avenue, clean lines, quiet power, no decorations, no noise, just order. Nicholas waited near the elevator. The moment he saw me, his face softened. Perfect timing. Julia's been reviewing everything. We walked into the conference room. Julia Tran stood at the head of the table, her navy suit sharp, her hair pinned tight, her posture straight as a steel bar. She adjusted her glasses and passed a thick folder toward me. "Mrs. Caldwell, everything is ready. I added something to the contract that might interest you." I sat, opened the folder, and scanned the first page. The title read, "Christmas Clause, Ethical Compliance Mandate." Under it, 4 bold lines. 1. Public apology. 2. Restitution payment to the Chicago Elder Justice Fund. 3. Community service requirement. 4. Mandatory respect certification training for all management staff. A quiet breath left me. Julia continued in her calm, even tone. "This clause will attach directly to their lease renewal. They refuse one condition. Everything terminates automatically. No arbitration, no delay." Nicholas leaned back, hands folded. They've had everything handed to them for years. Time they learn what consequences feel like. Julia tapped 4 fingers lightly on the table, each tap sharp. "I can send this today, at 3 p.m. Once they receive it, the timer starts. 72 hours. My eyes stayed on the document. Each requirement was clean, unembellished, and final. No insults, no theatrics, only accountability. I lifted my chin. "Send it." Julia nodded once, brisk and professional. "Before I do, there's one more component, optional, but fitting." She slid another page toward me. At the top, Harold J. Caldwell Memorial Holiday Program. Julia's voice lowered, steady but respectful. "This would require the Devons to fund an annual Christmas outreach for seniors in Chicago. Food, medication, emergency heating. Comes from their pocket, not yours. It carries your husband's name." My hand paused. For a moment, Harold's face flickered through my mind. The way he used to bring home an extra coat for someone he saw struggling on the bus. The way he said, "No one should be cold at Christmas." Nicholas watched me quietly. "This is your choice." I placed my palm on the page, firm. "Include it." Julia didn't smile, but something softened around her eyes. "Understood." She sat, lifted her tablet, and drafted the clause with swift, precise motions. Every word she added was clean, legal, and unshakable. No room for excuses, no room for manipulation. At exactly 3 p.m., she activated the email. "The package has been delivered. Deadline, Friday, 72 hours from now." Nicholas held the door for me as we left the room. "You handled that with more control than most CEOs I've met." It wasn't control. It was overdue. He gave a small nod. Approval, not pity. We stepped out of the building and the sky had cleared. The air smelled faintly of pine from a street vendor selling wreaths nearby. People rushed past us carrying holiday bags, laughing about dinner plans. A world moving, unaware of the small earthquake that had just been set under the Devon family. When I got home, I poured myself a cup of warm milk. I barely sat before my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered. A male voice pushed through, tense and clipped. "Mrs. Caldwell, this is Richard Devon. We received your document. An apology is one thing, but these conditions, this is extreme." My tone stayed calm. "The conditions are proportional to the harm. Funding a Christmas program, mandatory training, public admission, you're humiliating us." I rested my elbow on the table. "I'm not humiliating anyone. I'm giving you a chance to do what should have been done without being asked. You understand this will make headlines? That depends on how you respond." A beat of silence. thick and resentful. "You're doing this out of spite." "No, I'm doing this because I won't carry your family's disrespect anymore." He exhaled sharply. Anger, disbelief again. "This could sink our reputation." "Reputation is restored the same way it's lost. Publicly." Another pause. Then a final line. "We'll consider our options." The call ended. Not a trace of fear touched me. For the first time in years, my heart felt like it sat in the right place, neither shrinking nor racing, just steady. That evening, Nicholas called. Not frantic, not curious, just calm. "They'll push back at first," he noted. "They always do, but they'll fold. The clause is airtight." I stepped onto the porch, watching the neighborhood kids string lights across their fence. "Julia did well." "She respects you," he replied. "Not just the case." A quiet moment settled, a moment where I let myself breathe, not as a mother fighting for dignity, but as a woman who finally claimed her ground. When I returned inside, I picked up the folder again. The Christmas clause sat on the first page, bold and undeniable. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't cruelty. It was the first time their actions had ever cost them anything. And by Friday night, the entire city would know exactly why. The next morning, my phone vibrated before sunrise. 3 calls, all from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them and continued pouring hot water over my tea leaves. The steam rose steady, the same way my heart had been since the clause went out. At 7:12 a.m., another call came, this time from Julia. "Nora, Devon Realty's board has convened an emergency meeting. They've called their attorneys, PR crisis team, and 2 of their lobbyists. They're in full panic." A quiet exhale left my chest. "Good. They'll attempt loopholes," Julia continued, "but they'll fail. Every clause is clean." A small weight lifted inside me. For once, the law wasn't a shield for the powerful. It was a tool in the hands of someone overlooked for too long. By 8 a.m., the news hit the business circuit. Major Chicago firm faces ethics mandate in lease crisis. Christmas clause could reshape corporate conduct rules. I didn't need to read the whole articles. The first lines told me enough. People finally understood that humiliation had consequences. At 8:37 a.m., my doorbell rang. Fast, urgent, too loud for a polite visit. I opened it. Ethan stood there, shoulders tight, eyes red like he hadn't slept. Not the polished executive from a holiday gala. This was the boy who once promised he'd never let anyone make me cry. He stepped inside before I could speak, his voice unsteady. "Mom, what did you do?" I closed the door with a soft click. "I protected myself." "You sent a legal bomb into my wife's family," he pressed, pacing my living room. "They're calling it corporate blackmail. They say you're destroying them." I watched him walk back and forth, breath short, hands shaking. He wasn't angry. He was terrified. "I didn't destroy anyone," I clarified, standing straight. "I asked for accountability." He stopped pacing. "You asked them to apologize publicly, pay fines, fund programs, and admit what happened at Christmas dinner. Mom, they'll be ruined." His voice cracked at the end. I looked at him calmly. "Were you worried about me being ruined when Lydia whispered my poverty would embarrass her?" His jaw tightened, a flicker of shame crossing his face. "And when you stayed silent?" I continued. "Did you consider consequences then?" He swallowed hard. "I was trying to keep peace." "Peace for whom?" I asked quietly. "Your wife, her parents, her reputation, your image." He lowered his gaze. Silence filled the room, thick but honest. I walked past him and placed a cup of tea on the table. "Sit. If you're here to blame me, at least be hydrated." He sat, hands clasped tight. "Mom, the Devons are threatening to cut me out. They say I supported you. They're pushing Lydia to separate from me until this is handled." I didn't flinch. "They're doing what they always do, use fear to control outcomes." He rubbed his forehead. "I don't know what to do." "You think I didn't face that same fear?" I asked, voice steady. You think I wasn't terrified when your wife humiliated me in front of her guests? When you placed me by the service area like I was a stain on their perfect evening? His breath trembled. I made a mistake. You made a choice, I corrected. He looked up sharply. The truth hit him harder than any anger could. A beat passed before he whispered, Mom, I'm scared. Good, I replied plainly. Fear makes people think. You're finally thinking. He stared at me, a long moment passing before he asked, So what do you want from me? Nothing, I answered. You're not part of this contract. You're not part of the negotiation. You're only part of the consequences. He winced. I won't ask you to pick my side, I added. I'm asking you to stop standing on no side. He fell back into silence again, tormented, confused, forced to confront the very thing he had avoided for years. At 9:12 a.m., his phone buzzed loudly. Lydia's name flashed on the screen. He ignored it. A minute later, a message popped up. Ethan, come home. Now. The board is furious. Dad is yelling. Mom is crying. Fix this. He stared at the phone, then at me. I can't go, he whispered. If I go, they'll make me choose. You were always going to choose, I replied. You just postponed it. He pressed the bridge of his nose, overwhelmed. If I support you, Lydia will leave. Her family will freeze me out. My job, my whole career, depends on them. And if you don't support me? I asked. Another silence. He finally looked up, eyes full of something raw. Then I lose you. My chest tightened, not with pity, but clarity. You don't lose me, I answered. You lose your own integrity. He blinked hard, breathing uneven. Before he could respond, Lydia's name lit up again. Call after call, message after message. If you don't come home now, we're done. Fix your mother. She's humiliating us. If you don't stop this, you're on your own. He lowered the phone like it weighed more than he could carry. This is my breaking point, he muttered. No, I corrected softly. This is your beginning. He looked at me, confusion in his eyes. You've lived in their shadow for so long, I continued. This is the first time you're seeing how small they wanted you to be. He hesitated. So what do I do? Stand, I answered. Not for me, for yourself. A long breath left him. Slow, shaky, but real. He rose from the couch, his back straightened little by little, like someone learning to walk without leaning on others. I think I know what I have to do, he murmured. For the first time, I replied, so do I. He nodded once, firm this time, then walked out of my house with a steadier step than he had walked in. As the door closed behind him, I stood in the center of my quiet living room, hands calm at my sides. The Devons were panicking, Lydia was unraveling, and my son, finally, was waking up. The Christmas clause had done exactly what it was designed to do, expose the truth in every direction. By late afternoon, Chicago clouds dropped low over the city, gray and expectant, as if the air itself was holding its breath before tomorrow's public apology. I stood by the window, watching cars move along the street in slow lines. The quiet wasn't peaceful. It was preparation. At 4:12 p.m., the phone buzzed. Julia. They accepted every clause, her voice firm. Tomorrow night, the chairman will read the apology at the Children's Fund Gala. Cameras everywhere. They can't take it back. A small nod came from me. Good. You'll need to arrive early, she continued. Press will want a statement. Keep it brief, direct. That's the only way I speak. Julia's tone softened. Nora, this is not just a legal win. This is historic. Be ready. I'm ready. The call ended. I stepped into the living room. The Christmas lights Ethan once helped me string along the window were still folded in a box. I didn't turn them on. I didn't need decoration. I needed clarity. A knock sounded at the door. Nicholas entered, coat still dusted with cold. He scanned my face the way a surgeon checks a pulse. Precise, steady, looking for fractures. "You're calm," he observed. "I learned the cost of panic," I replied. He placed a folder on the table. Inside are the press guidelines for tomorrow. Nothing dramatic. Just what to expect. I opened it. Bullet points, times, locations, camera angles, exact place where Richard Devon would stand. The podium layout, even the direction he would face. "Julia doesn't miss anything," I remarked. "She learned that from you," he noted, folding his hands. "You gave her the spine to win this." I didn't respond. I moved through the pages slowly. Each detail sharpened my focus. Nicholas watched me. "How do you feel?" "Clear," I answered, like I've waited years to speak one simple sentence. "And what's that?" "I won't be erased." He nodded, a faint approval in his eyes. "Tomorrow, the whole room will understand that." He stayed for tea. No small talk, just silence filled with purpose. When he left, he placed a hand briefly on my back, a gesture of support, not ownership, and stepped out into the cold. Minutes later, another message arrived. "Ethan." "Mom, I want to attend the apology. I need to hear it myself. I don't know if that helps or hurts. I'm trying." I read the message twice. The words carried no excuses, no bargaining, just truth stripped bare. I typed back, "Come, not for me, for yourself." I didn't add anything else. As dusk settled, the doorbell rang again. This time, I knew exactly who it was before opening the door. Lydia. She stood stiffly on the porch, wrapped in a deep green coat, makeup perfect, but eyes shaky. Her phone trembled in her grip. "Nora, may I come in?" "You're already halfway inside," I replied, stepping aside. She entered like someone walking into a courtroom. She kept her coat on. Her fingers twisted the strap of her handbag. "My parents are devastated," she began, voice thin. "They say this clause destroys our family name." "You destroyed your family name," I countered lightly. "I only documented it." Her eyes flickered, guilt and fear mixing like oil on water. "I didn't think—" "That's the problem," I cut in. "You never think. You react. You perform. You protect your image, not your integrity." Her breath faltered. "Tomorrow, everyone will know what I said to you." "They should," I replied. "You said it." She stepped closer, desperation rising. "Nora, please, I'm begging. Talk to Mr. Hale. Ask him to soften the terms." "Nicholas doesn't make my decisions." She blinked. "Then talk to Julia, or Richard, or anyone. My father." "I'm not negotiating your comfort," I answered plainly. A tear finally slipped from her eye. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed. "I know I was wrong," she whispered. "I know I treated you badly, but this is too far." "No," I corrected. "It's the first time someone held you accountable." She went still. "Lydia," I continued, "you built a life on the assumption that people like me would stay quiet. Tomorrow proves that won't happen anymore." Her face tightened. "Are you doing this to punish me?" "No. Punishment is emotional. This is structural." She swallowed hard. "If Ethan chooses you tomorrow, I'll lose him." "That's not my decision," I replied. "It's his, and it's overdue." Her lip trembled. "What if I apologize now? Here? To you?" "You're not apologizing," I replied. "You're bargaining." She froze. She knew I was right. "I will hear your apology," I added, "after you give it publicly, not before." A long silence stretched between us. Finally, Lydia lowered her head. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." She left without another word. The moment the door clicked shut, the house settled into stillness. Not heavy, just firm. I cleaned the table, straightened the books, folded a blanket on the couch. Small motions, grounding motions. Later that night, Nicholas called. "Everything set?" he asked. "Yes." "You hesitant?" "No." "Good. Wear something simple. Let the truth carry the weight." "I always do." He paused. Then, "Nora, Tomorrow is justice, not revenge. You've earned every breath of it." A quiet acknowledgement hummed in my chest. After the call, I hung my black dress on the closet door. Simple, clean lines. The one Harold once said made me look unshakable. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands folded. Tomorrow wasn't about humiliation, or power, or winning. Tomorrow was about standing where they once told me I didn't belong. The clock ticked in the dark room. Steady, even, patient. Tomorrow, the world would watch the truth read aloud, and I would be there, not as a woman from the service area, but as someone who finally took her place. The Children's Fund Gala filled the Grand Meridian Hall with gold lights, polished marble, and rows of cameras waiting for something worth recording. The board members stood near the stage, stiff, rehearsed, pretending confidence. Lydia hovered behind them, pale beneath her makeup. Ethan spotted me first. He walked over slowly, as if each step carried its own cost. "Mom, you came early." Preparation keeps the room honest. He swallowed, eyes flicking toward the stage. "I want to sit where you can see me." "Then choose a seat with intention." He nodded once and stepped aside. Nicholas approached next. His presence steadied the space around me like a wall built from logic. "Julia's ready. The statement is printed. No edits allowed." "Good. Devon can barely breathe," he added quietly. He should feel the weight of truth. Nicholas allowed a small, approving breath. "Tonight is clarity." We walked together toward the front rows. Phones lifted as we passed. Whispers rose in tight batches. "That's her. She's the one behind the claws. She looks calm. She should." None of it shifted my pace. Julia waited near the podium, tablet in hand, posture firm. "All signatures verified," she confirmed. "The chairman will read the document exactly as written. I expect nothing less. Afterward, the floor is yours," she continued. "Keep your remarks short." "I always do." She stepped back, giving me the aisle. Lydia finally met my eyes from across the room. Her hands gripped her clutch so tight her knuckles lost color. She looked younger in this light, less powerful, less polished, more frightened. Accountability ages people. The host tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will begin shortly with a formal announcement from the board." Chairs shifted, dresses rustled, murmurs softened. The board members moved to the stage with forced dignity, each one trying to hide the tension in their shoulders. Ethan settled in the second row. His jaw tightened when he saw his wife's parents take the opposite side of the aisle. Devon cleared his throat behind the podium. His voice cracked once before it steadied. "Tonight, we address a matter of respect and accountability." The room stilled. A screen behind him displayed the heading, "Public Statement of Apology, Christmas Clause." People leaned forward, hungry for the drama they sensed coming. Devon continued, reading each line as if they were burning his tongue. "On December 24th, during a private family event, Mrs. Nora Caldwell was subjected to deliberate humiliation, exclusion, and discriminatory treatment by individuals affiliated with this board." Gasps cracked through the crowd. Devon's hands shook. He gripped the podium harder. Her seat was intentionally placed near the service area. Her presence was mocked. Her dignity was disregarded. Such conduct violates the ethical standards we claim to uphold. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. Ethan pressed his palms together, eyes fixed on the floor. Lydia stared at the screen, tears gathering but refusing to fall. Pride still fought inside her. Devon continued, voice almost whisper-thin. "We recognize that our silence, our participation, and our lack of intervention caused harm. Mrs. Caldwell deserves respect, not because of status, wealth, or influence, but because she is a human being." Silence followed. Heavy. Absolute. The line had landed exactly as intended. Devon pushed on. "We publicly apologize to Mrs. Caldwell for the humiliation inflicted upon her. We commit to corrective action, including the Harold and Nora Caldwell Reading Scholarship, funded for 10 years. A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the hall. Nicholas glanced at me, the faintest hint of pride in his expression. Julia stood behind him with her hands clasped. Victory held quietly. Devon stepped aside. "Mrs. Caldwell, the floor is yours." I rose without hurry. Every camera pivoted, every head turned, every breath in the hall seemed to pause. I stepped onto the stage, stopping at the center. No notes, no papers. I had everything I needed. Lydia lowered her gaze. Her shoulders curled inward. I looked at the board first. "Some of you forgot that character is visible, even in dim rooms." Eyes dropped in synchronized shame. I shifted my attention to the crowd. "Humiliation ends when accountability begins. Tonight, you witnessed accountability." People nodded, slow, steady, understanding. I continued. "Respect is not a holiday gesture. It is a discipline, and discipline is earned through correction." A woman in the front wiped a tear. Another man straightened his posture as if absorbing the lesson into his own life. I turned slightly toward Lydia, not lingering, not softening. "Growth comes when you stop defending your cruelty." Her chest rose with a sharp breath. She pressed her lips together to keep them from trembling. I finished with a simple line. "I accept the words. Keep the lesson." The hall erupted, applause breaking across the room like rolling thunder, not loud with excitement but full with agreement. Not for drama, for justice. Ethan wiped his eyes discreetly, his shoulders finally loosened. Nicholas stepped forward, offering his arm as I descended the steps. I didn't take it. I walked on my own. Strength didn't need support tonight. Julia met us at the aisle. "Perfect," she murmured. "Exactly the right weight." "It wasn't about weight," I replied. "Just clarity." She nodded, understanding perfectly. Lydia remained frozen by her seat, head bowed. No theatrics, no collapse. Just quiet realization, the kind that forces a person to look at their actions without escape. As we left the hall, the crowd parted on instinct, not out of fear, out of respect finally placed where it belonged. Tonight, the room didn't see a woman placed near a service area. Tonight, they saw someone who refused to stay there. The morning after the gala, Chicago felt different. Snow fell in thin sheets, quiet and steady, softening the sounds of the street. I opened the curtains and let the cold light fill the living room. No tension remained in the air, only stillness. My suitcase sat open on the edge of the couch. I folded each item carefully, not as preparation for escape, but for closure. A knock sounded lightly. Nicholas stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. "The flight confirmation arrived," he informed gently. "Tuscany, evening departure." "Good. You're really going. It's time." He watched as I zipped the front pocket of the suitcase. "You earned this peace." "Peace isn't earned," I replied. "It's chosen." A faint smile crossed his face. "Then you've made the right choice." The kettle clicked in the kitchen. He followed me there. I poured 2 cups of tea, one for him, one for the quiet between us. "Julia called earlier," he added. "The board already processed the first payment for the reading scholarship. 10 children will start in February." "That's Harold's work living on." Nicholas nodded. "He would have approved." I placed the cup down. "He taught me something useful. Dignity grows when you water it yourself." I forgot that for a while. "And now you remember." "Yes." We sat for a few moments with the warmth of the tea filling the room. Then another knock broke the stillness. Ethan. His shoulders hunched from the cold. His eyes looked different, no excuses hiding behind them. He removed his gloves slowly, like a man arriving with truth instead of defense. "Mom, can I come in?" "You're here. Step forward." He did. Nicholas gave a small nod toward me and stepped aside, allowing Ethan to stand closer. "I watched everything last night," Ethan began, voice low. "I watched you walk to the stage alone. I watched her face. I watched mine." His breath hitched once. "You deserved better, and I should have given it to you." Silence settled, but it wasn't cold. "You were quiet when you should have spoken," I replied evenly. "I know." His jaw tightened. "And I'm done living like that." I observed him carefully. This wasn't a performance. It was a break in something old. Ethan continued, "Dad would have told me to fix this without asking you to forgive me first." He would have been right. "I want you in my life," Ethan added. "Not as a symbol, as my mother. And I want to earn that place. You start by changing your patterns." He nodded once, firm. "I will." A long breath left his chest, as if he had held it for years. "You're leaving for Italy?" he asked. "Yes." "For how long?" "Until the air tastes clean." He gave a short, tired laugh. "I'd like updates, if you want." "I'll send them." Ethan's shoulders loosened. "Thank you." He reached into his coat pocket and handed me an envelope. "Lydia wrote this last night. She didn't ask me to bring it. I offered." I placed the envelope beside the kettle without opening it. "I'll read it later." "That's fair." He stepped back, unsure whether to hug me. I waited, calm, present, steady. He finally moved forward and embraced me carefully, as if he were learning how to do it correctly for the first time. "I love you," he murmured quietly. "I know." And that was enough. He pulled away. "I'll walk you out later. For now, I'll give you and Mr. Hale space." Nicholas raised an eyebrow. "He's learning." "He is." When the door closed behind Ethan, Nicholas exhaled slowly. "That was real." "Yes, he might become the man you hoped he'd be." "That depends on what he does when no one is watching." Nicholas stepped closer. "And Lydia? She'll either grow or repeat herself. The letter will tell me which direction she's walking." He studied my expression. "Do you want to open it now?" "No, peace first, reflection later." He understood immediately. We finished our tea in quiet agreement. As afternoon approached, I completed the last of the packing. I placed one final item inside the suitcase: Harold's old reading glasses. The lenses were scratched, the frame slightly bent, but they belonged in Tuscany with me, at least for this trip. Nicholas took the suitcase while I checked the lights one last time. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, soft white bulbs glowing, ornaments reflecting tiny fragments of the room. I walked over and switched the lights off. The room dimmed, not in sadness, just transition. I touched the final candle on the mantel and pressed the wick down. The scent of pine faded slowly. Nicholas watched me. "Ready?" "Yes." We stepped into the hallway, then out into the cold. Snowflakes settled on my coat, delicate but steady. Ethan waited near the curb, hands in his pockets, eyes soft. "I'll see you when you're back," he said. "You will." Nicholas opened the car door. I stepped inside without hurry. As the car pulled away, I looked back once. The house stood quiet, lights off, ready to rest. It held no pain anymore, only memory. The city passed in streaks of white and gray. People hurried across sidewalks with gifts and bags, unaware of the peace growing in the back seat of a single black sedan. Nicholas glanced over. "A new chapter," he noted. "A clearer one." The airport lights appeared ahead, bright against the winter sky. "They once placed me near the service area," I murmured softly. "Now I sit where I belong." Nicholas didn't interrupt. He understood. Peace wasn't loud. Peace wasn't dramatic. Peace was choice. And tonight, I chose it. As the plane lifted above the winter clouds, I looked down one last time at the city that had held so much noise. For the first time in years, the noise wasn't mine to carry. Some endings come quietly. Some victories don't need applause. Sometimes, walking away is the strongest line you can speak. Wherever this new chapter leads, I'm walking into it with clarity, dignity, and peace. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If my story resonated with you, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside, I hope you found a little strength here today. You're not invisible, and you never were. Before you go, feel free to like the video, subscribe to Grandma Life Stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what part of the story stayed with you the most. Thank you for spending your time with me. Take care of your heart, protect your dignity, and I'll see you in the next story.